Well, welcome everybody to the webinar where we're going to announce one of the more exciting things we think to come along ever with Cell Wellbeing and the capability that they now have to send postal samples to your clients who are in remote locations. So as you see from the agenda, we're going to review 4 things. Julie's going to spend a little time giving an introduction because she, for one, has been thinking about this for years. Perhaps you have as well. Then she'll transition to me. We'll talk a little bit about the operational logistics behind the program, some nuances to it that you need to learn. Then we'll segue back to Julie. She'll spend a little time on the FAQ, and then also some thoughts in terms of marketing this with your client base. So a little introduction, go through the operational details, and then talk a little bit about the program itself, and then some marketing thoughts. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie Clark, my very capable partner. Julie?
Thanks, Steve. Well, first of all, before we get into the logistics of all of this, I want to send a very big thank you on behalf of all of us, really, to Ian Lyons and his entire team. They have done a phenomenal job in putting this together on our behalf. It has been years in the making, as Steve referenced, and we're very grateful that it has finally come to fruition, because for those of us that have been in this business for a while, it's been something that we've wanted for a great deal of time. Ian has heard that message loud and clear and devoted not only a tremendous amount of financial resource, but a great deal of time and effort in researching, programming, development, all of the different pieces that go into this. A program as complex as this. So a huge shout out and thank you to Ian Lyons and his team. And secondly, we all need to recognize that Steve Reitman has done a tremendous amount on our behalf here locally in the United States to bring this all into fruition, because without his diligence in putting together all the piece parts, all of the ordering mechanisms, all of the equipment side of the equation, making sure that everything is set up and ready to go to process all those samples. There are so many moving parts, and Steve handled it with his normal grace and efficiency in terms of making sure that every little thing was taken care of to the best of our ability and at the most reasonable cost. And lastly, just a message to Carly Klein and Heather Germain and their teams. They took part in the initial test clients, if you will. They worked through a lot of the bugs with us and just were gracious in not only supplying a lot of information so that we could improve this even further from a user's perspective. And so I just really want to say a special thank you to those 2 teams as well.
Oh, man.
With that, going into a little bit of the history, not a great deal, but just a quick touch on, why this was necessary. Back in the beginning, when I first started my business, one of the things that became clear to me was I would sit down with the client, run through their report. They were so excited about the details and the impact it could have on their own personal health. And they instantly mentioned, 2, 3, 4, sometimes as many as 10 people that were scattered across the United States that they wanted desperately to have access to this report. And, our only choice at that point was to go out and try to find someone in those distant cities. Most of the time we were not successful because we didn't really have that many providers. So we were just left with really no option to serve those clients. That's obviously a lot of the feedback that was given to Ian and his team. And so they really, like I said, probably 4 or 5 years ago, heavily began investing in not only the research as to what it was going to take to deliver this kind of very complex product. And the reason it's complex is because most of the other products that are out there right now, when they are a mail-in option, are really looking at metals and minerals. Because when you're sending a sample through the postal system, of course, it's going to go through, equipment that's going to not only expose it to EMFs, but also radiation. And so they had to figure out a way to protect the sample in such a way that those influences were not going to alter the results, if you will, of the report. Likewise, unlike what we do right now, which is pluck the hair and within that 3 or 4 minutes rather, get that hair sample on our S-Drive scanner, this is an aged sample. It's going to go through the mail sometimes 5, 6, 7 days. And so the equipment that was required to not only read the sample, extracting all of the elements involving the environment, but also recognizing that it was an aged sample required a tremendous amount of development on the technology side in order to ensure that sample was pure, accurate, and they've done a lot of testing to make sure that what they're delivering to us is exactly that. And then we come into the year, 2021, and now we're knee deep in social media, involved in all these different types of influencer opportunities and everything else. And therefore the need be expanded well beyond just our personal experiences with clients and their referrals. But now we're going into dealing with these vast number of individuals scattered across the United States that these influencers are bringing to us. So being able to react and respond to those influencer broadcasts about the cell wellbeing technology now is available to us in the form of this mail-in option. So it's an exciting time for all of us, whether you're new in the business or relatively aged in the business, if you will. This is a great time for all of us to be a part of this. So we're very excited about bringing this to you and hope that you are excited to be receiving it. Lastly, I just want to point out that Steve, had sent out not too long ago the deliverables that you see there on the screen, as far as the tutorial, the FAQs, instructional videos, and PDFs. If for some reason you don't have access to that or you haven't received them yet, just drop Steve or I a note and we can get those back out to you in short order. With that, I will turn it back to you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Julie. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about this provider instructional manual. Before we do that, though, we want to review these two, what we found critical concepts for you to kind of digest in advance. One is, you're familiar maybe with these terms, but it's important to differentiate what we call the back office from what we traditionally think of as your S-Drive software. The back office, you can go directly to cellwellbeing.com. It takes you to that section of your portal where you can order credits, and many of you have done that in the past. But as you'll see, as we go through the material, all of the ordering of the credits, the posting of your credits, and ordering the kit for your client, all of those will be through your back office. They're not going to be on what we traditionally call your software, your S-Drive software. The S-Drive software, which you're familiar with, is where you typically go in, you have a client session, you pluck the hair, you scan it, you send it, you get the report back. It shows in your history so that you can do research and when the client calls in the future. That's your software. But it's important to keep in mind that when you're ordering credits, when you're sending out test kits to clients, that's all done in the back office, not in the S-Drive. We'll develop that theme more in a moment. The second concept that's very important as well is something perhaps you're familiar with, which is the fact that German law, like the United States law, when it comes to healthcare records, obviously we're not officially healthcare, but it's a similar standard. The Germans have a very high standard of confidentiality. It's one of the great attributes of the Cell Wellbeing report. But as you think about it, we can't take your client information, send it off to Germany for processing, and then send it back to you over the internet. That would be against the law, thankfully. And so as you'll think about this, the flywheel that makes all of this processing work is a unique ID, or what Cell Wellbeing calls a customer code. So when you send the kit out to the client, they're going to get a kit, they're going to collect the sample, they're going to send it back to the processing center. We're going to send that information to Germany to be processed. Everything that makes this work is this unique ID or customer code. It's not the customer demographic. And so this will have a significant impact on your workflow, which we'll go into here in a moment. So differentiate your mind between the back office versus the traditional S-Drive software where you conduct your typical face-to-face consultations. And then because of German law, again, a good thing, everything that makes this system work and operate, the flywheel or the ointment that makes it fluid, is a unique ID, and that has an impact on your workflows, as we'll talk about. So this brochure is one of the deliverables Julie mentioned. If you've not received it, please let Julie or I know. Happy to send it. The link that's at the top of the screen is just a Google Drive folder that 24/7, you can access this anytime. And if you look at this brochure, this manual, it's broken into really two broad sections. The first section is kind of that section that talks about you ordering credits or then actually ordering a kit for your client. Then the back end of this user manual, pages 6 and 7, deal more with you actually receiving the report. So if you think about it, it's the front end of you ordering credits or ordering a report for your a test for your client, or the back end of actually receiving the report and then emailing the report to a client. So I'm not going to go through every single line item in the brochure. It's too hard to read on the screen. You'll hopefully have the brochure in front of you. And one of the things Julie and I will recommend is that you practice. There are some nuances and new things with this process that it would just sit in front of your computer, go through the user manual a couple times, and then it will start to be intuitive. But up front, there are some nuances to it that are a little different. So again, the first few pages are just talking about how you actually order credits or how you actually order a test kit for your client. Again, won't go through each point, but very similar to what you do now, you will actually order postal credits. You'll go into your back office to do that. You don't go into your S drive to do that. You go into your back office to do that. In addition, when you're going to order a kit for a client to be shipped, it's going to be shipped by facilitating it through the back office. You're not yet going to be going into your S drive software. That seems straightforward, but some folks have been confused by that. So just to keep it clear, everything on the front end is facilitated in your back office. So when you receive the user manual, if you have any questions, just let us know. It is fairly straightforward, and once you get used to it, it's pretty simple. So there's already a couple of best practices that Julie and I have identified. Once you've ordered your postal credits, once you've ordered a kit to be shipped to the client, and I didn't mention it earlier, but that's how this process works if you're not familiar, is that you will get on your S drive, you will order the report for your, or the test for your client. We then at the processing center will ship the kit to the client. They will send a sample back to us. We will then process it and send that file to Germany. From there, Germany knows, because of that unique identifier, to send that report back to you. So very similar to how your doctor office may order labs for a client, where the doctor orders the lab work, but the lab facilitates all the workflow. Here, you will order on your S drive and through your back office, but then we, the processing center, will ship the kit, receive the kit, send it to Germany, and then Germany will know through the unique identifier to send that report to you. So in this process where you've ordered the credits and you've now had a kit shipped to the client, there are 3 best practices we're suggesting. The first is to send out the user instructional guide. This guide is in the kit, but it's a very small print in the brochure that's in the kit. A lot of people aren't going to be able to read it. And so our suggestion is to just grab this link. It's always available to you. You can download it. You can refer a client to it. It's there 24/7. But this guide will show a client how to walk through collecting the material, working through collecting sample, and then packaging it up and sending it back to the processing center. So the first thing is just send them the PDF so it's bigger print and they can read it. Then the second thing we're suggesting is you send out the video, either the adult video or the child video, depending on which report you're sending out. Again, this is the link to the YouTube site where that video resides. You can access it 24/7. You can download it yourself if you'd like to send it out, or just direct people to our YouTube site. So please do send out the guide. Please send out the video. It will just make it easier for the client to follow the instructions. And the last best practice is we've encouraged people journal in your calendar 7 days after you order the kit for the client, and just give them a little nudge. Send them a text, send them an email, maybe a quick phone call, and just ask them if they've had a chance to follow up and process the kit. Because we're finding that even though people paid for it already, sometimes they're not in a hurry. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not. And so one of the things we just encourage is please journal in your calendar to follow up in a week, just to prompt them to turn the results around. You should know, as it says here, though, you will get an email, you the provider, you will get an email from Cell Wellbeing 14 days after you order if the lab has not processed the sample by then. So again, 14 days from the day you order to the day of processing. If it's not happened, you will get an email. So that prompts you to follow up in case that slips off your radar screen. So send out the guide, send out the video, and then just give them a little nudge in a week or so if they've not followed up on it. So back to the user manual. Again, the front page is about ordering credits, about ordering a test kit. The back end of it is about you receiving the report and getting it to the client. Julie and I just wanted to spend 30 or 60 seconds on page 4. This does not apply to most of you, and I won't spend a ton of time on it, but we just wanted you to know that Cell Wellbeing has a business model built in where you can physically get the kits in your office or in another office if you would choose. So if any of you are working with what would traditionally be a retail type setting, maybe you're working with a gym that has high customer flow, maybe you're partnering with some sort of nutrition store, perhaps you're working with a dog groomer or something with a dog report. Anybody that in theory is more of a retail outlet that has ongoing customer flow, where it might make sense for you to physically have the kit in their hands and then they can just hand it out to a client. Cell Wellbeing has built a business model and a workflow that would allow you to do that. So again, it doesn't apply to most of you. I won't spend any more time on it. If you have any questions on it, just reach out to Julie or I, because Cell Wellbeing believes that this will be an application for a number of providers that will be very useful to them. So to work our way through the brochure in the last couple of pages, we've talked about getting the credits, about ordering the test for the client. Now we're in the section where it talks about getting the report back and then customizing it for your client. So again, I won't read through each individual item, but suffice to say, back to that issue of the unique ID, when we send this information to Germany, it does not have your customer information on it. It doesn't have their name, their address, anything. When it comes back, all it has is this customer ID, this customer code. And so this workflow that Cell Wellbeing is identified on pages 6 and 7 are what you, the provider, need to do to take that unique ID and then add back the customer name for not only your report retention, but also to send the report out to the client with their name on it. None of us want to send a report to a client they just paid hundreds of dollars for, and the customer name is some phantom number, right? And so it's very important. These last couple of pages are completely new to all of us, but it was the workaround that Cell Wellbeing did where they still abide by the law of not sending customer data back and forth. It has to be transmitted back and forth to Germany with this unique ID, but it allows you on the back end to then go grab that ID, associate the client information with that report, download it into the report so that you're retaining it in the history under the client name. And when you send the report to the client, it's actually personalized with their information. So again, this brochure should be extremely helpful. It's fairly straightforward. If you have any questions about working through the workflows, just let Julie or I know. We're more than happy to address it with you. So with that, we will now move to the third item in the agenda, which is Julie working through some of the highlights of the program. We will now jump a little bit away from the PowerPoint and move to a Word document just so it's a little bigger on the screen and Julie can walk you through it. So Julie, take it away and I'll pull it up for you here now.
And while you're doing that, Steve, just one point of clarification, because I know this is a little bit confusing. Right now when we order a client report off of our S drive, it's you, a provider, sending the information from your S drive directly into Cell Wellbeing. The reason this is different is because we're now involving, let's call it a third party, because that report is not coming directly from your S drive into the Cell Wellbeing mainframe. It's going from your S drive as far as the order to our Cell Wellbeing, our For Healthy Cells Processing Center in Chicago. Chicago's receiving that information, sending the kit out to the customer, receiving it back from the customer, and then For Healthy Cells Processing Center is now sending it to Germany. That second step in that process is what complicates this, because again, it's not coming directly from your S drive into Cell Wellbeing, it's going through another channel, which is why that unique identifier has to be attached. So for those that might feel that, wait a minute, I'm sending this to Cell Wellbeing from my S drive, why is this different? Because I'm still sending it through the internet. Why is this different than this new version through the mail or the postal option? That's the reason, is because we've got that intermediary step that has to take place. So to protect the client data and client information, that's the reason we have to have this unique ID. Couple things, we're not going to go through all of these FAQs. The piece that you would have received from Steve, or that you will get later from us if you haven't received it yet, will have a lot of details. I'm just going to highlight a couple of the key ones that we know are issues that have come up, with the folks that we've already worked with. This first one, talking about, does a provider need additional software to run what's called My Optimizer? The postal program is called My Optimizer. Do you need any additional software or anything different done to your equipment? The answer is no, except for you do need to ensure that you've got the newest version of the software uploaded into your system. There's the simple steps to do, but it's extremely important because a number of features and certainly some of the functions involved with this postal system will not work correctly if you don't do that upgrade. So please make sure you do that, even in front of the time in which you believe you're going to have that first postal client. The second one is with regard to the turnaround time. We're very fortunate in that Steve is at the helm of this, so he's monitoring it and managing it very tightly. As I mentioned, the For Healthy Cells Processing Center is in Chicago, right there with Steve. And basically what happens is your customer receives, the kit from the processing center. They turn it around usually within about 24 hours of receiving that notification from your order system that the client is ready to receive their kit. They send the kit out. It's a tracking number is assigned to it. You will get an email at the point that that kit is sent out to the customer. You will get an email, and this is very important because this is the one and only email that links the customer name and the customer ID. It's the only piece of communication you will receive that has those two elements together. Our suggestion is, when you get that email, drop it into a folder on your desktop. So if for whatever reason you're not able to locate the client file through the lookups systems that are there and everything else, you at least have a mechanism to go to your client file and find that unique identifier that's associated with them. So please, again, drop that into a folder on your desktop or wherever it's convenient for you, and make sure you retain that one piece of communication. Who can order a postal kit? Basically, it's only those individuals that are set up as providers here in the United States, with the Cell Wellbeing back office. So if you're a retail store and you don't have an S drive, you can't order it. You have to work with a provider that has an S drive that is a, For Healthy Cells provider here in the United States. The reason this is important is we wanted to protect the integrity of what you all have established out there. We wanted to make sure that, anyone who wanted to take advantage of this postal option had to work through one of our existing providers or new providers, obviously, for those individuals that might bring someone along once they are a provider. But just know that, again, no one who, only those individuals who are existing providers will have access to this ordering system. As it says here, only those individuals, providers within the United States can order for clients anywhere in the United States except for New York. This is not a Cell Wellbeing rule. This is not a 4 Healthy Cells rule. This is just strictly based on the governing agency within New York. They simply don't allow this type of testing and a multitude of others, frankly, to take place within their states. So if you have a client that is physically located in New York, or if you have someone who wishes to order by physically being in New York, we simply cannot send a kit to them. So just be aware of that. Let's see, next one, in terms of other countries at this time, not just because of the mail-in option, but also because individual countries are governed by, the country managers and everything else in terms of sales within that country. So we do not have the ability to order a kit for, say, someone in the UK or Germany or something along those lines. That if you do get a request of that nature, just let Steve or I know, and we can funnel it off to the appropriate remote manager. But just be aware that you cannot physically place an order for those outside of the United States. By the way, Alaska and Hawaii, those are states, so they are definitely included. And we are looking to find out whether or not we can order for Puerto Rico. So we will keep you posted as soon as we have an answer on that. In terms of any limitations, with regard to marketing the postal capability, there are no limitations. You can absolutely market through your social media accounts, through influencers, through different individuals that you have access to. Obviously, your website and such is fine. The one thing you can't do, or we can't do, is market this particular program through agencies such as Amazon or eBay or Etsy or any of the other agencies that are out there. With regard to the postal kit and the cost of the kit itself, if you could scroll that, thank you, Steve. Here's the pricing information. We wanted to make sure that you all had that. Understand that there is obviously a little bit of a discount if you order multiple kits at a time. You'll see it there. If you order one kit at a time, it's $85 per test. 5 is $78 per test. And 10 is 69%. Clearly, there's an advantage to bulk ordering, just as it is with our existing report requests. We are looking into whether or not they might be able to offer some larger bundles down the line, and that's a possibility. Ian hasn't decided on that quite yet, but we will obviously keep you posted on any development in that regard. And it's important to note that the above fee does include the standard $35 charge that we currently experience. So this is not in addition to that $35. The fees that are showed there. So if you order 10 and you're paying $69, that includes that $35 fee. A lot of people have asked about pricing and how to, develop pricing in terms of what you're going to charge the customer. We basically suggest that, just as you do in covering the existing $35 fee that you have right now, you want a package based on, what your earnings opportunity needs to be in conjunction with this mail-in option as well. So you're paying about $35, again, assuming you buy 10 postal credits, for a total of $69 per test, where you're going to be paying about $34 more for that test than you are under normal circumstances. So if you want to just pass that $34 charge onto the clients, that's fine. If you want to mark it up just to make it an even number, 35 or 40, that's fine too. That's really up to your discretion based on what your overall expenses are, what your market can support, and of course, what your normal fees are, in a typical situation. And then in terms of how the client samples are processed, we've had a couple of questions as to whether or not it's possible for us as S-Drive providers to actually process the samples on our S-Drive, and the answer is no. For a couple of reasons that we sort of talked about and alluded to in the beginning, which is number one, it's an aged sample. So we have to have a very powerful piece of equipment. In this case, it's called a bioinformational processor. This equipment has been calibrated to allow for that extra, time between when the sample is plucked and it's actually, put onto the processor for evaluation. It also obviously goes through the radiation and such. So we want to make sure that that sample, only those samples that are aged and gone through this experience are being done, are being evaluated through the BIP processor. Ian wants to be very clear that our policy, not just in the United States, but worldwide, is that, if it is discovered that an existing provider is utilizing their S drive to actually scan mailed samples, Cell Wellbeing reserves the right to cancel that provider's, association with the Cell Wellbeing program. So it's important to maintain the integrity of what we've all built. Let's be, straightforward and honest in dealing with it in the way that Ian has set out for us. And with that, I'll turn it back to Steve, I believe, or actually, we're going to touch on a couple of the marketing pieces.
Right.
Again, there's some additional frequently asked questions, FAQs, that you will see on the guide that we've sent out to you. We are going to add to those as more information is received from all of you in the field. If you've got, a unique question or anything along those lines, please do pass it on to us so that we can include it. More than likely, if you've got the question, it's going to be something that somebody else asks as well. Okay, if we could go back to the, I'm sorry?
I said, good job.
Oh, thank you. Speeding through it. We're trying to go fast here. We'll still get all the information in. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the opportunity. Obviously, we've got a lot of existing clients, those that have made reference to the fact that they've got someone in a distant city that they would love to have the tests be given to. I would suggest you obviously reach out to those that you can recall offhand, but also take advantage of any mailing list that you have. Or if you're not aware of this, you actually do have the capability to go into your Cell Wellbeing back office and copy and paste all of the information, excuse me, that would include your client's obviously contact name and email address. If you do not know how to do that copy and paste function, drop me a note, let me know, and I'll walk you through it. It's pretty straightforward and simple, but it will allow you to then drop those email addresses into kind of a blast email message and get that word out to all of your clients that you now have the ability to offer, the postal option. And we mentioned to some of you that we're going to develop a kind of a template email blast, and that has been developed. For those of you that don't have it yet, let us know and we can send it out to you. And then if you've got that ability to do that with your existing clients, get that message out. Now is a great time, because not only is it a wonderful time to buy for holiday gifts, but it's also right in front of all those New Year's resolutions that involve everything from losing weight to just getting healthier in the new year and so on. So this is a perfect time to reach out to those clients with a nice holiday message, and also just a tip that you now have this postal capability available. I mentioned social media, and this is a huge one. For those of you that have really worked hard at building your social media platform, now's a great time to take advantage of the fact that you've got a reach into a lot of different individuals. Post some information about your mail-in option, let people know, because now it doesn't matter if they're in your immediate footprint or not. You can obviously take care of them as far as ordering, their kit through you. And we mentioned partnerships here, and this is really important because so many of us, through the course of our business life, personal life, and everything else, we've run into individuals that might be in distant cities that, you've got a unique opportunity to work with, either because they've got a complementary business or they've got customers that, kind of fall within the same realm of, your business and such. So this is a great time to reach out to those folks and see if you can develop a partnership with them so that you can serve their clients jointly through obviously them referring their clients into you. They receive obviously some share of whatever revenue is collected from that client, and you do too. So it's a great way to just expand the reach of what you have right now in working with some of those relationships and partnerships that you have developed in your past life. And the last thing I want to touch on is this lead share policy, and it is contained in the information that we sent out to you. But I just want to touch on this because this is important. Many of us have been involved in organizations, companies that received leads into their, let's call it corporate office. And then those leads were either, handled by the corporate office and just sold, if you will, through that particular entity, or in some way they were passed back out, to individuals in the field. Steve and I believe that, we need to deliver back to you everything we can in terms of growth opportunity and business opportunity for you. So we are not going to process any of the leads we receive through our corporate site, whether it be through our Instagram account, Facebook account, our website, anything along those lines. Any leads that come into us that we cannot associate back to an existing provider, we will put them into a pool and pass them on to individuals that we are calling the All-American Team. In order to qualify for that All-American Team, basically you have to do an average of 8 regular scans. It doesn't matter what the mix is: immune report, hair, skin, and nails report, dog report. It doesn't matter what the mix is, but an average of 8 over the course of 3 months. We're going to keep a list of all those individuals, and as leads come in, we'll just go right down the list. We're agnostic when it comes to who's going to get it. Just anybody on that list, we'll just go straight down the list and hand those leads out. For the individuals that are new to the business, we're going to, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, is it 5 clients in the first month that you have to do? But basically, we're going to cut that number down a little bit just to give those individuals a chance to be on that All-American Team list. So again, if you've got any questions, need more information on that, let us know. Most important message is we just want you to know that those leads will come back out to you. Once again, if they're not associated with, if we cannot bring them back and associate them with an existing provider.
And Julie, you somewhat made reference, but this is any leads that come to Poor Healthy Cells or to Cell Wellbeing. Everything and anything, we will not process it. We will not compete with anybody. We will forward that to the All-American Team. So go ahead.
Correct. Thank you. Okay, so in terms of best practices, just some things that we want to mention again. As far as this email blast, as I said, there's a great way to cut and paste all of those accounts that you have had, in your Cell Wellbeing back office. If you do not have currently an email list, we can help you create one and get that information out to the clients. It's going to be a great way to really launch your business, launch, the opportunity, not only to fulfill those postal opportunities, but also, just get a message out to your clients with maybe not just a holiday message, but a New Year's resolution message as well. Again, talked about a little bit the social campaign. If you haven't already followed us on the For Healthy Cells Instagram account, which is for_healthy_cells, follow us, because we're going to be posting some information about mail-in scattered in with all the other messages that we post. And please, if you haven't already taken advantage of that, the sole purpose of our developing that platform is so that you can have a message that you don't have to create and develop and research and everything else. You can simply take those messages and share them with your clients, and that way get not only the education out to them, but also information such as this, which is a new opportunity for them to take advantage of mail-in. Dog and cat, when it comes out, obviously baby child is now out, hair, skin, and nails. So lots of messaging that goes on inside that campaign just to help you expand and grow your business. And the last one is with regard to this New Year's promotion. You should have already received information about the holiday message that was produced by Cell Wellbeing. Ian sent a blast message out to all providers worldwide. It's a nice holiday message. It's just basically talking about, giving the gift of health. And, certainly for those of us that have individuals that are difficult to buy for, some people that, we seemingly believe have everything on their list already taken care of, giving that gift of health is a great way. And now that you've got the postal option available, it doesn't matter where the person is in the United States, we can obviously address that issue for them as well. Okay, is there anything else, Steve, that you can think of that I missed on that piece?
That's it. As you jump in and you need help, call. We're here 24/7.
That's right.
So
all right, thanks everyone. We appreciate you participating in this with us, and we look forward to working with you as we enter into 2022.
Thanks for your great work, Julie.
Thank you, Steve.